dictating your will for free.
Tom's Warwick on LBC.
With Motorway, sell your car quickly, easily and conveniently from home for free.
6:22 is the time. Very good evening to you. Tom Warwick with you here on LBC, talking about the effects of the war in Ukraine. Of course, devastatingly, and most importantly, the effects on human life of the war in Ukraine. But also the fact that we are going to feel this here too, the financial effects. Whether it's the price of wholesale gas or the cost that can be associated with creating the wheat that Ukraine and parts of Russia create, that is going to be felt by us at some stage down the line. Oil is already over $100 a barrel. It's not just affecting you and me, it is also clearly hitting the oligarchs. And to that end, a piece of breaking news. Roman Abramovich has decided to sell Chelsea Football Club. In a statement in the last few minutes, Roman Abramovich has said that the sale of the club will not be fast-tracked, but will follow due process. He has, with the club's best interest at heart, taken the decision to sell. As he says, I believe this is in the best interests of the club, the fans, the employees, as well as the club's sponsors and partners. He says that he's instructed his team to set up a charitable foundation where all net proceeds from the sale will be donated. The foundation, he says, will be for the benefit of all victims of the war in Ukraine. This includes providing critical funds towards the urgent and immediate needs of victims, as well as supporting the long-term work of recovery. He says, I hope that I will be able to visit Stamford Bridge one last time to say goodbye to all of you in person. It has been a privilege of a lifetime to be part of Chelsea Football Club, and I am proud of all of our joint achievements. Chelsea Football Club and its supporters will always be in my heart. Roman Abramovich in the last few moments releasing a statement saying that he has decided to sell Chelsea Football Club. Bob's in Manchester. Bob.
Yeah, hi Tom. I've just been listening to what you're talking about, and I want to touch back upon the increase in the energy prices. To give you an idea, before Christmas I was paying about £450 a month. The thermals with them and in January it increased to £600.
Sorry Bob, you were paying £450 a month?
No, £450 a year, Tom. Went up to £600 a year after in January, because the thermal was with them late last year. I had an email today advising that the forecast is going to be £950. So essentially in less than 6 months it's gone from kind of 450 to 950. One of the things I wanted to touch upon is, okay, I think we can all understand that the price of gas and therefore electric is going to go up because of supply and demand. Lots of people have spoken about that with more knowledge of it than me. One of the things I picked up on this email today is the standing charges that are being increased by these firms. The standing charge on my electricity is going to increase by 96%. The standing charge on the gas is going to go up by 23%. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I presume that this was to do with general running costs and maintenance of the network, etc., etc. How can the firms justify that sort of increase when it's not related to the wholesale price?
Well, can I offer one explanation?
Yeah.
Which is, I find this absolutely shocking. I've mentioned it a couple of times on my late night show, because when I found out about it, I just couldn't believe it. One of the reasons why the costs are going up to the extent that they are is not just, as you pointed out, because the wholesale price is increasing, but partly, in a small way, as a result of a lot of these firms, when they went bust, had a lot of people's money in credit, money that they'd owed because they'd overpaid on their energy bills. But these firms were not told that that money had to be ring-fenced, and so spent it on business costs. That meant that when they went bust, those firms could not pay back to those customers the money that they were owed. And so in order to do the fair thing, which is just to give money back to people who are owed money, who lost it through no fault of their own, all of our costs...
In 200 yards, at Wagoners Roundabout, take the second exit onto the Parkway, A312.
Now, I'm happy that people are getting the money back, but it's not my or your responsibility to look after people's money. It's the responsibility of those businesses that used it for other purposes. I think that is shocking.
Tom, you might remember I actually called you about this because I claimed on direct debit guarantee.
You did. You went to the bank.
The customers to do that. So I think this is just profiteering. I genuinely think it's just profiteering. We've got Shell at the latest stage yet, and the chief financial officer stands up and says, we've literally made that much money, we don't know what we're going to do with it. It's time for the shareholders to take a bit of the pain here rather than just the customers. I'm sure there are lots of fuel poverty charities out there who could happily show Shell what to do with $20 billion profit last year.
What are you going to do, Bob, about this?
Well, I'm a carer for my elderly dad. Luckily, he's only a couple of miles down the road, but especially as the weather improves, the car will be getting left outside of the flat. Basically, I'll be walking down to see him. I'll be riding down on my bike, and rather than taking it any great distance from where he lives, we'll be going as far as he can walk, which isn't very far nowadays. So we'll live a kind of, a slightly small, his world will shrink a little bit, basically, so therefore the quality of his life will probably shrink a little bit as well.
And given the context in which we're talking, Bob, with the horror show of what is happening in Ukraine, what would you say to someone who says, well, grand scheme of things, when all's said and done, that's not a massive price to pay?
It's not compared to the Ukraine. Anybody who tells you it is, we are not having cluster bombs thrown at us or barometric bombs, can we? Are we? I'm a Man United fan, I'm not a Chelsea fan, but at least Roman Abramovich is donating the money that he's made on the profit of selling Chelsea to good causes. So perhaps he can, as well as sending some money abroad to Ukraine, maybe he could help some of the people of this country and help him make that money in the first place as well.
Exit the roundabout onto the parkway.
Thank you very much indeed. 0345
Continue on the parkway for 1 mile.
4850 to text. You can tweet at LBC. Here's Will tweeting away tonight. I just heard Martin Lewis, Tom, on your show, when he said that the October price cap could increase to 47%. Is that based off the current price or after the April rise? Will, that's after. This is 47% in October on top of the 54% that's already happening in April. And who knows what will happen the next time the price cap comes to be reviewed, because these price rises are not going anywhere. The global picture has been made even more unstable by the war in Ukraine, and who knows, unfortunately, how long that is going to last. When you hear the boss of a fertilizer firm right at the start of the food chain saying we are looking at £3 for a loaf of bread now, or £7 for a pint of beer. And I completely understand that we're talking in the time of war, when there's a war going on in Ukraine, and £7 for a pint of beer is neither here nor there if you're worried about your house being blown up. But I don't know that some people are contending with the storm clouds that are on the horizon when it comes to this stuff. And on top of that, I just point to the net zero costs. We haven't talked about it yet, hasn't been brought in yet, because people see it as a bit of an easy trick to try and bring in, and there are costs, of course, associated with not greening the economy, which need to be taken into account. But the way in which it's being done at the moment, there are a lot of people who are going to pay a lot more for the policies that get us, hopefully, to net zero by 2050. And again, I think there is a bit of an issue with consent about that. Come on to more of your thoughts in a few moments. 0345 6060 973 is the number. We'll bring you everything you need to know regarding what has happened over the last few hours in Ukraine with our Ukraine report in just a moment. 6:31, news headlines first. Amelia Cox.
Ukraine's envoy to the UN has accused Russia of seeking to commit genocide. The General Assembly has voted to condemn Moscow's actions and called for Putin to immediately withdraw troops. 4 countries, including Belarus, Syria and North Korea, backed Russia in the vote, while India and China were among those to abstain. In the last few minutes, the Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich has decided to sell Chelsea. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer called for the Prime Minister to bring sanctions against the businessman earlier. The Swiss billionaire previously said he'd been approached to buy the club.
LBC Business Update.
With Direct Line Landlord Insurance, peace of mind with the emergency add-on.
The cost of Brent crude oil and natural gas have dramatically increased following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Oil's now at around £85 a barrel, while gas is up by more than 35%. LBC weather: rain for many tonight, particularly in the north and west, drier in the southeast, lows of 3 degrees.
degrees. Have you ever thought about becoming a magistrate? It can give you a chance to challenge yourself and gain new skills, all while creating a positive change for your local community. This week on LBC, Sheila Fogarty will be speaking to a serving magistrate to find out how people from all walks of life can do the job alongside their current role. With no formal qualifications needed, hear how you too could receive the training and ongoing support to begin a magistrate. That's tomorrow from 1 p.m. with Sheila Fogarty, and thanks to the Ministry of Justice on LBC.
In a quarter of a mile, at Cranford Parkway interchange, take the second exit onto the M4 slip road to Heathrow Airport, M25.
7 a.m. And then you remember, it's Sunday. It feels so good. Know what else feels so good? Knowing that Pension B combined your old pensions into one simple online plan, used by almost 100,000 savers across the UK. Be pension confident. Download the app or visit pensionb.com today.
Authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Capital at risk.
Hey, business times. Words getting round. There's a whole...
Exit the roundabout onto the slip road.
Going off the scale.
In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4.
Cloud-based phone system that makes it easy for businesses to add new users quickly on a pay-as-you-grow basis. We're talking less complexity, easy scalability, all-out connectivity. Keep your peeps in the loop for less. Get your free 7-day trial at circleloop.com. Circle Loop. Now you're talking.
Driving is not a game. If you tailgate the car in front, the closer you get, the less time you'll have to react. Don't be a space invader. Leave at least a 2-second gap. Search National Highways for more information.
Many people struggle with loosening teeth. Often their dentist has told them nothing can be done. Let the TDC team restore your teeth, your smile, and your confidence with our award-winning Smile in a Day dental implant treatment. Book your consultation today. Visit smileinaday.co.uk.
AJ Value Invest gives you the security and control to look after your investments. Whether it's a stocks and shares ISA or a self-invested personal pension, our investment ideas make it easy to get started. You work hard for your money, and we want it to work hard for you. So get investing in your future at youinvest.co.uk. Open an account by the 5th of April to beat the tax year deadline. AJ Value Invest does not provide advice. Capital at risk. Tax rules apply.
Your home, your comfort zone. Tado, smart thermostats to help you save energy. Visit tado.com. T-A-D-O. German engineered. Tom Swarbrick on LBC.
With Motorway, offering free home collection when selling your car.
Down to Leeds, Tom, our gas electric bill just landed yesterday. Last month 195 quid, this month 430. It is mind-blowing, and we are being told more to come, even without the Ukrainian situation impacting on it. What a world. Come back to your calls on that in just a moment. Talking of Ukraine, let's give you everything you need to know, everything that has developed over the course of this afternoon. Reporting for LBC, Josh Giltrap.
Well, Tom, we've had the first report of military casualties from Russia's defense ministry since the start of their invasion. It confirms that 498 troops have been killed in Ukraine, with 1,597 Russian casualties. I should point out, though, that these figures are at odds with those from the Ukrainian government, which says the number of Russian dead stands at more than 7,000. This morning, Ukraine woke to the news of 4 people, including a child, dying after a Russian missile hit a building in Zitomir in the north of the country. Meanwhile, in the southern city of Kherson, the mayor Igor Kolikayev revealed that Moscow had taken control of the railway station and the port there overnight. The invasion is now in its 7th day, and throughout this afternoon we've been updated with reports of dozens of deaths as urban areas like Kyiv, Kharkiv and Chernihiv have been targeted by artillery and airstrikes. Speaking in the Commons today, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has accused Vladimir Putin of committing war crimes.
What we have seen already from Vladimir Putin's regime
quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
CC prosecutor is already investigating, and I'm sure the whole House will support that.
Downing Street claims possible war crimes are now happening almost hourly. Elsewhere in the UK, demonstrations have continued into this week in support of Ukraine in cities across the country, including...
Keep right to stay on M4.
I've also been to one in Wolverhampton, where I've spoken to Mikhailo Fedic. He told me how hard it is to still have family out there.
My cousin had to flee with a baby daughter, a 9-hour drive, to the west. Her husband had to stay behind and fight as a reservist. It's Kyiv, I was there for Christmas, everything was beautiful, everything was lovely. Ukrainians just want a peaceful life and harmony. We just want this war to end and peace once again to reign in our beloved country.
These demonstrations are the latest in a line of hundreds of spontaneous gatherings, vigils and protests against the war which have sprung up across the world over the last week. The UN has estimated that nearly 1 million people are now trying to get out of Ukraine, and even the Pope has been asked to talk to Vladimir Putin in the hope that he'll be able to persuade him to at least allow humanitarian corridors to help innocent civilians who are trying to flee to safety. And the crisis in Ukraine is continuing to have a bit of a knock-on effect in sport as well. Motorsport UK has banned Nikita Mazepin from racing for Haas in Silverstone's British Grand Prix. In fact, all Russian licence holders will now not be allowed to compete here in the UK. In fact, the only place where we will be able to still compete with Russia is in the Winter Paralympic Games in Beijing. The president of the Games has made the decision to allow Russian athletes to participate as neutrals.
Reporting for LBC, Josh Giltrap. Let's come back to your calls on the energy crisis, what we're seeing as a result of, partly as a result of the war that is taking place in Ukraine, how that is adding to what is being seen as a cost of living crisis already. Veryl's in Dagenham. Hi, Veryl.
Hello. Yeah, I'm a bit confused about this energy increase. I understand what it called a direct debit of £72, that's now £190-something. It's based upon this over 3 months. And they said that I owed £725 for 3 months gas and electric. It makes no sense whatsoever. I've got a sick wife, cancer sufferer. She goes nowhere. She just lay down, wrapped up in blankets, which I'm like doing exactly right.
In a quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
There's no money for this. There's no money for that. They've cut our little rice that Cameron gave us. They've cut that. They've put up national insurance. They've put up...
Keep right to stay on M4.
Everything is gone up. And they've got a nice little rise of £2,212. How does that work?
Well, the MPs say that they don't set their own...
Any sense?
Very likely.
Your pensioners, like, we worked hard. 50 years at work. And now I can't even flipping to buy,
And that's what you're doing, you and your wife, who we've spoken before, suffering from cancer.
Yeah, I'm laying here right now with blankets over my life. What's wrong with it? You got Mayor Khan putting up this. My daughter wanted to go down to the doctor. Grandkids. She couldn't get a train because the trains are on strike. But guess what? Train clears later. Not sorry, but this don't make no sense.
I don't know, and Veryl, I've got to be honest with you, and I'm sorry to be bleak about this, I don't know where the relief is coming from. When's the moment when people will go, okay, well, we can bring these prices down now, or okay, we can lower taxes, or okay, you can have your triple lock back. When does that get to happen? I just don't see it happening.
So where's the money come to give them a £2,000 rise then? They earn 81,000, they'll be now 84,000. I'm on £166 a week after working 50 odd years in this country.
I think, Veryl, listen, I'm so sorry. I think a lot of people are in not dissimilar situations. Thank you very much for your call, and best to you and your wife. I just think that there are going to be a lot of people who look at this and decide, if they possibly can, that maybe life is just a bit too expensive here. Maybe that there are better options overseas, elsewhere, somewhere else. I realise that other nations around the world are also affected by what is happening across the globe, and it's not a particularly rosy picture anywhere, given that everywhere has been through a pandemic. But some of these self-inflicted costs, as Verrill talks about there, are connected, I'm afraid, in part with the policy of getting to net zero by 2050, a policy that I absolutely agree with and think is the right thing to do. You can't ignore the climate crisis, but the manner in which it's being done and the timing of some of the things that are happening are just hurting people even more. Someone provide for me. Can anybody give a good reason as to why the national insurance rise? Not that it is happening at all, not that it's happening in the way that it's happening, but someone give me a good argument as to why it's happening next month. Why does it need to happen in the next few days, given the cost of absolutely everything is going up? I just don't see...
In 2 miles, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
Is that the man who's bringing it in wants to be able to bring it in now in order to be able to say by the time the next election rolls around, oh look, I'm cutting it. We cut taxes. That it's not really to raise the 12 billion a year necessary in order to fund social care and the NHS backlog. That 12 billion could in theory be found from rising VAT receipts or from cutting waste here, there and everywhere. You could probably, if you looked hard enough, try and find ways of raising that money, or take it from other people in slightly different ways, rather than asking a 22-year-old on low wages to pay more tax. Regardless of the arguments about how you do it, I just don't see any argument for doing it now. Do you? Anything? 0345 6060 973 84850 to text. You can tweet at LBC. We'll come on to more of your calls in a few moments' time about this. We'll take some views too on the situation in Ukraine, as the breaking news this hour is that Roman Abramovich is going to be selling Chelsea Football Club. Tom Swarbrick here on LBC News Headlines now. Amelia Colt.
The Prime Minister says he believes President Putin's actions in Ukraine already amount to war crimes. Officials say more than 2,000 civilians have been killed in a week of war with Russia. And in the last half an hour, Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich has announced his decision to sell Chelsea Football Club. LBC weather: rain for many tonight, particularly in the north and west. Drier in the southeast, lows of 3 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. On the M3 southbound, 2 lanes stay closed because of an accident after junction 3 for bag shots, so there are queues from the M25. On the M25 going clockwise, there are queues from just before junction 22 for St Albans through to junction 25 for Enfield after an accident earlier on. There are also queues on the M1 northbound after a car broke down earlier on, just after junction 6 for Brickett Wood. It stays very slow in Wandsworth on the A214 Trinity Road northbound. 2 lanes are closed near Wandsworth Common because of an accident.
In a quarter of a mile, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
There are severe delays on the Hammersmith and City line, on the Circle line going clockwise, and also on the District line between Earls Court and Wimbledon because of cancellations.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
The Prime Minister today accused Putin and his cronies of committing war crimes. The evidence...
Exit at junction 6.
Can he be brought to justice?
Ian Dale on LBC.
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the 3rd exit onto Tons Lane, A355.
She was being set up,
Yeah, I know.
and she needed to find out why.
Well, BT set me up.
Exit the roundabout onto Tons Lane. In a quarter of a mile, turn left towards Sippenham Lane. Turn left towards Sippenham Lane. Continue for 1.5 miles.